Hello and welcome back to episode 28 of the Boxing Social podcast in association with Betfred, with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. Before we get started, as always, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, delighted to be joined by former WBA super middleweight champion of the world, George Groves. George, always great to see you and great to have you on the New Look Boxing Social podcast.
Yeah, new look. It's nice setup. So I do have a few concerns. It might get voiced later. But you've gone full Barrymore, as I said on the way in. Michael Barrymore on the couch, rather than the sort of in the box face to face, which had a bit more gritty sort of snatch, sort of rough and ready feel. This is much more clean, polished, silky, sleazy, but nice. I like it. I'm enjoying it.
I was with you until you said sleazy, but yeah, I do agree. I do agree. The other podcast it was like one of them like face-offs, like Max Kellerman face-off, where you're just staring at each other from across the way. I thought it got some good content. I thought it was like an interesting dynamic. But yes, we're very much now on the casting couch, the Boxing Social casting couch. So welcome.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Right, before we get started and talking about the fight this weekend and a few other bits and pieces, let's talk about yourself. Of course, everybody has seen you and your old mate, Mr. Froch. You've started your tour now. So tell us a little bit about that. How have you been getting on?
Yeah, great. Me and Carl are quite the double act. We've had, I think it's three events so far. We've got about another half a dozen or so to go. There might end up with being a few more. We're just warming in. It's like each round. It's like another round. Obviously, our first fight was a big first round, but this one is more. It's a slow burner. Hopefully, I don't get stopped in the second half of the fight. But no, it's great. I mean, me and Cole get on. I got a lot of time for him. I got a lot of respect for him, which I disguised pretty well for years and years and years. And then once he realised, actually, I appreciate you a little bit. He lowered the guard, and we get on really well now. He's someone who I could call for advice even. We're all right. So the shows have gone really well. Everyone's been happy as far as it feels. I think the next stop is Shrewsbury. Can't remember the last time I've been there. Maybe I never have, but that's exciting. We're up there next weekend. So yeah, long may it continue.
How did it come about? Like how from kind of the last time we saw you in the ring together, don't want to dwell on that too much. How long since then did the thawing take between you for you to become kind of pally? How did it all start?
Yeah, no, I mean, like people think, oh yeah, after the fight, man, I hated him more after the second fight than I did before it. Before it, I thought nothing of him. And I'm sure he hated me just as much. Like it wasn't that closure that he wanted and he can put me to bed. Like the first interview he does the next day after the fight, he's still seething. It took a long time to simmer, and I'm sure he come to terms with it quicker than I did. I probably couldn't forgive him until I won the belt myself, won a world title, where I could finally say, oh well, it was all part of the journey, weren't it? If I hadn't got there, I'd probably hate him right now. But yeah, and then we've met up a few times, been colleagues, covered boxing, been at the shows, and yeah, the rivalry was just too much effort to keep going. We was nice to each other. We killed each other with kindness, and yeah, it's what I would prefer, to be honest, than trying to carry on hating someone. That takes a lot of energy, especially when you get to my stage when I'm not fighting anymore. There's no need for it. So probably the whenever it was, we had a I can't remember whose show it was, like who was headlining, but we both covered for Sky. Sky made a big thing of it, and I suppose there was a slight bit of awkwardness in the meeting, like the talent meeting. What do they call it? It's where you all come together before the show, and you make sure that everyone knows who's fighting. No one's been asleep at the wheel. What time you're on. So you just have a little meeting, and we got on from then. So it's all been good.
Do you think that you would have this relationship now if you'd have won the rematch? Do you think Carl would have given that to you if you'd have won the second fight?
Maybe because like he was at the end of his career. Like he'd had a long, tough career, and this was his this was his. Like he spoke about recently. This was his last sort of huge effort. Like win, lose or draw, this was going to be his last fight. So I think he could have come to terms with it. Whether I could have stopped gloating would have been a tough one. Do you know what I mean? Whether I'd just but straight away, if I'd beaten Carl, like there would have been gloating just for the fun of it. But then I could have lowered my guard and shown the respect that I had for him and everything else that comes with it. But so I think so. I think he. But who knows? A very good question. And I don't like to say very good question. You can say very good question after you've answered the question. Don't start an answer with very good question, because all that means is you don't know the answer to the question. You're like, oh, I need some time to think.
Well, I'll take your word for it as somebody who was very good with the media in your day. Would you think you would ever say, like 10, 15 years down the line, somebody gives you enough money to do a tour with, let's say, I don't know, James DeGale? Would you do that?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
I think that would be a slightly different vibe.
Yeah, slightly different vibe. You know, we never... We you know, the me and Carl sort of made men's before this tour was put together. Me and James haven't, and DeGale's, you know, he still lives in London. We have mutual friends that, you know, cross over all the time. I don't know if like Carl was good at giving it back. So the verbal build up was good. I think DeGale's a different person than when I fought him. You know, like he was very animated, very argumentative. Now he just seems much more chilled. I don't think it would carry on for a great story. But we might do one day. See if someone comes to us. So who's gonna broker that deal? Eh? Yeah, maybe one day we do one if we get a taste for it, then maybe. But right now, there's only one tour you want to go see, and that's me and Froch, isn't it?
And how do we do that, George? So how does
go online? Don't be that guy who asks me how to do it. Right? Use your initiative. How would you go about it, Rob? If you thought I want to go to this, I won't directly ask George. What I'll do is I'll try something on my own account, like my own accord first. What would you do?
I'd probably Google watch Carl Froch George Groves tour.
Yeah, and then you probably get hit with like the Macmaker Promotions website, which that would come up first, and you can get in contact with Dean, who works there direct, or just buy tickets direct from him. Either or. He's a lovely guy. He's working very hard. He always looks very stressed on show night. So yeah, and there's always tickets available. It's not, these are at the moment they're dinner shows. They can always squeeze another table in for you. You know, if you really want to be there, they'll squeeze you in. So it's not like, you know, we're at the Hammersmith Apollo and there's only so many seats. Like, no, they'll get you in. So yeah, everyone's welcome. Everyone's invited.
Look, I didn't intend to kind of to go too far into it, but I'm going to ask, I'm more intrigued than anything. Obviously, without over divulging, you want people to still come and see it. But what kind of format does it take? What's the standard evening so far been for the free shows? Yeah,
so we come out, you know, do a little bit. We'll say hello. You know, there's no pushing and pulling. There's no there's none of that malarkey. There's you know, you have the compare at the moment. It's been Adam Leventhal, who's been fantastic. He knows the rivalry inside out. So we'll talk about what happened before the first fight. The first fight, there's usually a slight disagreement at the ending of the first fight, and then, you know, talk about the second fight, and then onwards, and then, you know, like all these events, there's you know, there's some fun games. There'll be maybe an auction, this sort of thing, and then we do a Q&A at the end. So anyone who's come has got some questions they want to ask, and we've had some fascinating questions. Yeah, I ain't going to give any away because everyone thinks they're the first one to finger those questions. So if you do end up at the show, by all means, ask a question, and we'll give you the honest answer. So it's funny because we are totally content with each other, but at the same time, there's certain things that I ain't going to let him have, get away with, and vice versa. So it does get a little bit heated. You know, at certain points. So, but it's all good fun.
It must be great. Like, I can imagine, like, when you're in your career, you don't really think of it. Certainly when you're in a rivalry like that. But to be able to go and do a dinner show that you know people are going to turn up for. I mean, I was speaking to somebody today, and I said that you were coming on the podcast. I said, "Oh, George Groves, really got me into around Froch Groves, really got me into the sport." And now I was a hardcore boxing fan. It must be great to kind of have that in your, like. Not going to name any names, but some fighters enjoy tremendous success while they're active, and then when they retire, you know, boxing, the nature of sport, but certainly boxing, it's on to the next one, and they kind of get not pushed to a side in a bad way, but it's just the nature of the beast. Whereas you've got, we spoke about the De Gale rivalry, almost said fights, but of course you only had one as pros. He won the amateur one as well before he butts in. But it must be great to have that rivalry that, you know, people will kind of look back on, and you have people who are still interested in your career after it's finished.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, like when I was been preparing for Froch the first time, he kept talking about his legacy, and it was a word that I didn't like. Like, I didn't like you talking about legacy. What's this got to do with anything? But I still hadn't won a world title yet. You know, I thought I was going to go on and beat Carl and conquer the world. So legacy wasn't an important thing to me. It was something that sort of made me shudder a bit. But now, like, I can say that even though I lost at Wembley, like, I am proud that, you know, I was involved in the biggest fight in post-war Britain at the time, you know, and we created something out of nothing. You know, I did the bulk of the heavy lifting, but I know that without Carl as a antagonist, without, you know, Eddie Hearn having the ambition to, you know, take himself to the next level, without the backing of Sky and being in a position where they could just promote and publicise the shit out of it, you know. But it's amazing achievement. And as you say, people come up to me and say, you know, they love the rivalry. They've got them back into boxing, or it made them follow boxing in the first place. And you get numb to people over the years, Rob. Like, people as a whole, you don't think much of, you know, because sometimes they're booing you on the way in and they're cheering you on the way out. And then, you know, so it's tough to contend with people. And I think you want to have a slight detachment of people collectively, because ultimately, as you say, boxing finishes, you can get forgotten about real quick. It's a whore's game. So, and doesn't matter at what level you get to, you're still a whore. Sad story, but we love it. Like, what can we do? It's individuals that pay dividend in the end, and it's them individuals that you end up fighting for and caring about. And then when you meet some real nice people, hardcore fans that have followed you and are happy for you, like, it's really rewarding. So I've always got that in the back, you know, feather in the cap that we went to Wembley and we sold 80,000 tickets, you know. And now that's Carl's catchphrase, like, he can't get away from it, which I'm glad that he won't let no one forget either. So it's all good.
Final one on Carl. We saw the clip that was doing the rounds about him talking about how you would get on against Canelo Alvarez. Of course, we're going to talk about Canelo versus Canelo-Plant, somebody that you've shared the ring with in sparring. Yeah, what were your thoughts on that? You can't even, it's such a lovely double act, because you're so different in a lot of ways. And obviously we all know the history that's gone beside it, but the way in which you can tell without saying anything what you're thinking while he's talking and going around the houses and ultimately saying that you've got no chance or whatever. Like, what's that like to go through? And also, how do you think Carl would have got on against Canelo?
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Was the question was, right, I'm not going to ask you how you would have got on. I'm going to ask you how you thought each other was going to get on. So he started to answer the question and said, well, what I would have done was, like, Carl, come on. It's like, you know, you live in the moment in boxing, you know, and if Alvarez gets beat on Saturday by Canelo-Plant, people are going to be calling him rubbish, you know. You know, I was at the where was I? Madison Square Gardens for Joshua Ruiz, right? And these Brits have paid a lot of money to fly out there and watch him, and he doesn't perform. He gets beat, he gets stopped. No one's got their head in their hands as they're walking out. They're just coming out and they're just coming up to me and saying, wow, rubbish, isn't he? Useless. Like you're only as good as your last fight in many ways. And Alvarez at the moment, Canelo, he's on a phenomenal run, and he's inherited the pound for pound, you know, money generator from Mayweather since Mayweather's gone, and you know, he's performed brilliantly. But when I was super middleweight world champion, no one was asking me, how do you think Alvarez will get on against you? Because he was a middleweight, you know. So you know, if I turn around and say, well, me and Carl would have gave him fucking hell, you know. Carl's a big super middleweight, been there with everyone. We will get fucking torn a new arsehole, wouldn't we? But if I turn around and say, Andre Ward, I think he beats him. I think super middleweight Alvarez isn't big enough. Ward beats him. A lot of people will probably go along with that, unless they are hardcore Canelo fans right now. Well, Canelo's been up to light heavyweight. But I'm a huge fan of Canelo. I love the way he fights. I think, you know, he's a fighter I could look at and take things from. Like, his balance is incredible. You know, his footwork's good, but just his power to weight ratio looks excellent. He's got the boxing mind. He's super mobile from the waist up and solid from the waist down. Hinges from the hip, creates phenomenal power. That said, I do think a couple of his wins have been flattering. I think beating Kovalev at light heavyweight it's flattering. You know, that wasn't the Kovalev that we'd seen against Ward and seen against, well, for years and years and years. He looked a bit of a shadow of himself. Same with Smith. Smith looked dead at the weight at super middleweight. That fight was thrown together last minute. So Smith's now up at light heavyweight and looking a bit better, a bit more rejuvenated. The Saunders fight, you know, Saunders is a 2-weight world champion, but really he's a middleweight, and you don't think he really could do too much at super middleweight, and was relatively in the fight, but not really. Canelo was in full charge. This weekend is the one that I'm fascinated with, because Canelo-Plant kept a little eye on him over the years. He had a perfect record, like a gobby American. Like, let's see if he's got anything to back it up with. Great reflexes, terrific hand speed. The power at the start, I was like questionable. But then when he won the belt, he beat Uzcatsky and showed some power and showed some nuts, you know. And I think this one could be, I think it should definitely be Alvarez's toughest fight at super middleweight to date. If Plant gets it right, he's got his prep right and gets his tactics right, you know. We saw the altercation at the press conference, and like, why is Plant leading with a bitch ass like left hook, like a slappy hook, and he's pulling away from it as well? There's no commitment from him. Maybe that was just a measuring stick for him. He thought, I just want to have a little feel. I just really want to know how far away I can get from him. Because if you're fighting Alvarez, you don't worry about hooks. You want to be straight shots, especially if you've got the height and reach, and you're probably going to have a bit of just as much speed as he is. Plant's going to be firing good, hard, fast, loose jabs to the head and chest, and that's where everything else needs to come off that. I'd frustrate Alvarez by keeping him at that range, and then look to bring in the real quick, sharp, swift, bent arm shots, whether that be up through the middle or around the side, you know, hooks to the head. You can throw left hooks, right hooks, but everything needs to come off that jab. If he does that, then he has a chance of controlling the distance, controlling Alvarez's like, it's not even tempo. It's like, you know, it's the rate of the fight that he can drown people without doing anything. You know, he has the high hands, but loose, as I say, loose upper body. You know, he springs in real well from long range, so he can be on you with a terrific power shot. Definitely takes and rides a shot really well, so he's happy to trade shots at times. You know, to sit in the pocket with Gennady Golovkin and survive just shows you how good a chin he's got. So, yeah, it makes for a fascinating fight. But I just got a habit of picking upsets, you know, lately. Some come off, some don't, you know. I picked Wilder, and I thought he just gassed out the tactics. Doesn't know how to vary his power. Doesn't know how to. He's a 3-round fighter. But he got his tactics right to a certain degree at the start. He got dropped, got up, buzz fury. He was interesting, real interesting. I didn't have the nuts to say Usyk might win. I still backed Joshua because I thought he was going to be too big. I thought the power was going to pay dividend. I thought if he lands something, I thought the question marks were kind of still there on Usyk. Had we quite seen enough of him after less than 20 fights or something to unify cruiserweight and go up to heavyweight? But he showed tremendous skill, beating the bigger guy with skill. And this one now, people might have taken their eye off the ball. They might be gun-ho that this is just a Canelo show. It's all about fighting 4 times next year. That means he's not having 12-week camps, is he? Because, he's going to have 12-week camps and 3 days off and go back to work. It's bizarre. So I'm looking forward to it. I always look forward to a Canelo Alvarez fight. He always delivers. Doesn't really fight lackluster. He always shows up and performs. There's so many things to admire about him. Yeah. But this one, I just hope it's a great fight. I just hope it's a real competitive fight. DAZN needs it. Boxing kind of needs it a little bit right now. There's been a couple of shocks and horrors, but this one, I'm confident will be well worth its prep.
See, I was waiting there just for you to commit to picking the upset, and you never quite did. So, are you picking Canelo-Plant for the upset?
Why not? It sounds like, but genuinely, I want him to win. I sparred Plant once out in Vegas. I might have said this on the pod, and then you deleted it.
I didn't delete it.
So we went was out in Vegas for Frampton. So Frampton was fighting someone in Vegas, one of his world title. I feel like it was a world title fight.
In Vegas, could it have been Leo?
It might have been. It might have been Santa Cruz. Yeah. So I was out there, fat and out of shape. I think I was trying to negotiate a world title fight with De Gale. Well, not directly with De Gale, but I was talking about trying to get a fight with De Gale. He had the IBF world title. We're talking to someone about splits. Trying to do it all covertly in the Frampton mansion. Do you know what I mean? Hiding out in the back. I think it's Robert Guerrero's house or some fighter out of the States. They've got this big house in, downtown Vegas with a gym in the thing, like a boxing ring in a garage and stuff like that. It was all right. It sounded better than what it was. I was trying to be all covert and hiding. And Shane must have been like, why don't you just sit in the living room and do this? You know what I mean? I hadn't been with Shane that long, so. But I was out there and I wanted to be part of the team. So we're training. We're training in Sean Porter's gym. Taylor had some sparring come down, or someone had some sparring come down, and Canelo-Plant showed up with his training partner. I can't remember his name. Some dude. Do you want to do some rounds? Yeah, of course I want to do some rounds. And I was slow, real slow, hit with a jet lag and couldn't shake it. Stayed hit. But I didn't really think much of Plant. I was like, yeah, whatever. And I don't spar particularly well. I always spar with myself, and I see it as a bonus anyway. So people think they take confidence away from the sparring. But Plant was good. He was quick. Trash talking, I'd already had a bit of that, but sparring in the States, been out, sparred the Durrell brothers and stuff like that. I'm used to the trash, but landed a couple of right hands on him. I wouldn't say I won the spar, but that wasn't the intention anyway. I just wanted to get a think and feel of his hand speed, but a big guy, and I think he's probably improved a lot since then. So this was before he was world champion. So. Fascinated. Never ever managed to spar or train alongside Canelo, which would have been fantastic. Sparred Golovkin up in Big Bear. There's pictures of Alvarez up in the gym up there. I've done a few trips, a few rounds, been through the gyms in the States, but Alvarez wouldn't mind of hanging out with for a little bit at some point.
Yeah, you
Didn't
two
happen.
sat there in your D&G pajamas together and
Yeah, well, yeah,
living your best life.
that's it. You know, two gingers. Like, I always thought, like, if it was me and Triple G, like that would have been like a full house, like GG versus Triple G, or you know, so am I with the G's or am I with the gingers? Do you know what I mean? I could evenly be split. Like, I could just do a Don King. Like, just whoever wins, like, drop the flag, take the shirt off. I'm with this guy.
Let's talk about the Gennady Golovkin spar, which of course we may as well mention it was part of the last podcast that we did, which never saw the light of day. Yeah, really interesting time you had yourself in Big Bear. What can you tell us about the spar with Gennady Golovkin? What can you tell us again?
Yeah, tell me again. Hopefully I told it right first time. No, yeah, so I just lost to Froch at Wembley Stadium this time. Just got knocked out. Bit fed up, to be honest. Not my happiest moment, really. Happiest time. When I think we went on holiday, came back, and then Tom Loeffler, who's looking after Golovkin, called someone, got in touch with us and said, "Do you want to come out and do some sparring?" I think that's how it went down. But anyway, we ended up, me, Barry O'Connell, Paddy Fitzpatrick, boxing coach, Dan Lawrence, my strength coach. We just went to Big Bear. So it was like a bit of a jolly boys out. You know, we flew out to Big Bear, went to California, training Abel Sanchez's gym with Gennady Golovkin, and yeah, I suppose. I mean, I wasn't in the killer frame of mind as such, no. But sparring with Golovkin, it seemed like, yeah, I'm turning this down, and I'm not. As I say, I wasn't that guy who had to perform in sparring. I didn't have to win rounds. Like, winning rounds wasn't a thing until I started training with Shane. So we went out there. As I say, I'm fat, out of shape. You know, land say on the Thursday, jet lagged. Friday up we get. It was summertime, so Big Bear you can actually, it's quite hot. You know, the ice melts. You can go to the top of the summit, catch a tan, get out on the lake. So I took my shirt off, got a bit sunburnt, I think, that day.
Within about 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, don't take me long. Don't take me long. We climbed the summit. We thought we was going to run it, but it's hard. Didn't make the top of the summit. Come back down, had a few beers, sparring either that night or the next day. It must have been the next day. I doubt I'd had a beer and then gone and sparred.
It's probably difficult enough to spar.
Yeah.
Gennady Golovkin.
So spar Golovkin, but that's the idea. Was like, I'm going to throw myself in the deep end. Like that it's a bit.
Was that because of you were coming off the loss, or was it just because that's kind of your
It could have been. It could have been. But I am that guy who likes to just make it a little bit more difficult, a little bit more interesting, add a bit of spice to it. You know, let's make it interesting. So sharp at the gym. I've got my gym kit on. Walk into this gym. It's like 200 degrees in there. They've got these big like fire furnace things on. It's like, Gennady likes to train with the heat on. I was like, of course he does. Like. Gennady likes to do 4-minute rounds. Well, of course he does. Is that okay with you? Of course it's okay with me. I show no weakness. I'm thinking, fucking hell, 4-minute rounds. Like, I can barely like walk. I mean, it's so hard to breathe at Big Bear. You're 10,000 feet above sea level. Like, even climbing through the ropes, doing a warm up, you're like, you don't really sweat, but you just can't breathe. It's bizarre. So I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And they're like, so Gennady wears this body protector, right? It's like I think it's American football like body armor thing, right? It's like just this little thin plastic thing goes through, and it protects your ribs. And he said, "Do you want one?" It's like, no, I'm not a fanny. I don't want your Mingy fucking body protector. Is that you sure? Because Gennady wears one. And I was like, nah, getting away. I don't want none of that. So come do the first spar, do okay, but I'm breathing heavy, like I'm struggling a bit here. But I think we do like 3-4 rounds. That's enough. He's got other sparring partners there. Like Gennady's like this is his last week of sparring before he's fighting. And as I say, I'm fresh off the plane from a KO loss in front of everyone. So I was like, no, come on, no messing about. Like this is got to do a bit better next time. I don't mind not winning the rounds, but I don't want to be blowing out my arse. So take it a little bit more seriously now. Yeah, we're sparring 2 days later maybe. But this time I get up, I have breakfast. No more sunbathing. Do you know what I mean? No more sitting in the sun. No more climbing the summit. Like make sure we're fresh for the spar. Again, do you want the body belt? No, I'm not a minge. Don't want it. Like, you have it. So I get involved, and I'm doing much better this time. I'm doing much better. Like, I'm catching him, I'm sticking it on him a bit, you know. Conscious of the unfitness, you know, that's going on. So I don't want to gas out. Because like Gennady's brilliant. Like, he's just like, he got that phenomenal power. It must all come from his lats or something, but he punches like down on you, and it's like, it's a touch whip. And like, I'm a wily old dog by now. I've been in here with everyone. You can't do touch whip with me and get it off. But he was like, he was touch whip, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know that one was coming. You know, like, it wasn't like I could get the arm there in time, but it, you know, he's got through it. I didn't even see it coming. So I'll probably get a little bit carried away with right hand happy used to be. Here I was. And then he just goes touch, whip, and I just hear this crack. I was like, that's my rib. That feels a little bit broken. Like, so I just, like, again, no help being 10,000 feet above sea level, but I'm like, I can't really get much air. When the air that's coming in now is actually really hurting. So I come back to the corner, and I'm like, oh, I think he's broke my rib. They're like, all right, what do you want to do? I was like, well, I don't want to get out, but there's not a lot really in this for me right now. So he's like, no, you're getting out. They pulled me out. I was like, Abel, he's hurt his rib. I was like, oh, okay. Do you know where the hospital is? To book me a cab to go to the hospital. I didn't know. I'd never broken a rib before. They just x-ray it and go, yeah, you got a broken rib, mate. Great, what should I do? Nothing. I was like, oh,
Don't
cool.
spar Gennady.
Yeah.
About a body belt.
Yeah. So anyway, took that body belt home. It hung in the gym for a long time. I think I used it the first couple of times.
Shane still got that.
Shane's probably got it now.
I think it was. I think I put that on when we did the challenge with Lawrence Okoli, and Lawrence hit me with a body shot. I think it's the same body belt, and they're not very thick. I mean, about 8 weeks later, on the same side, I had a collapsed lung. So that kind of shows you how much protection they're going to give you.
Yeah. So it wasn't. As you say, I could have worn it or not. He probably still broke my rib. It doesn't matter. But Golovkin, that was great. Like, a huge fan of Golovkin. I put him up there as, you know, he's up there with some of the best middleweights of all time. You know, talking about, you know, the big guys. Like, he had a phenomenal run at middleweight. Terrific fighter, lovely guy. Shame I didn't show up fitter and give a better account of myself. Shame, you know, our paths didn't cross in the pro ranks, and I could have bashed fuck out of him in front of everyone. Been up for it.
That's the beauty of being retired now. You can say something. Well, it never happened. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Was the power everything? I mean, obviously he broke your ribs, so I mean, I'm sure he hit a little bit. But was the power that the same as everybody kind of, because he has this kind of mythological power mythical power that everybody talks about over the years. Was it like that? Did you experience that in the ring?
Yeah. No, he could whack. He could certainly whack. Whether it's God-given power, whether it's something he's created, but you don't get as far as these guys get off one attribute. You know, he's an extremely well-schooled, you know, former Kazakhstani, you know, amateur boxer who would have, you know, learnt his trade, you know, in the amateur system, to then put that through into the pros. His distance control is brilliant. His footwork is amazing. His eye for shots are great. You know, he has that power that allows him to, you know, walk himself into situations where he might get clip, and then it doesn't matter because he's got that equalizer power. He's tremendous power, but obviously as I say, the other stuff to go with it as well. But you know, I can only go off the few rounds that we did, and I would say I was out of shape, but you can feel it. You can feel the power.
Yeah, you make a good point there about kind of taking one together. And I always remember the Daniel Gill knockout, where he kind of takes the right hand and the left hook's coming over from him simultaneously, and it lands and completely wipes Gill out, which didn't look very fun for Mr. Gill. You land the right hand on him, you finally land a shot, bang, and then all of a sudden you're on the floor. Yeah. But yeah, back to Canelo-Plant. One thing, like, we spoke about this the other day. We did another podcast, and one of the things that I'd like to speak to you about is as somebody who has experience of fighting on the big stage, and you know, certainly Froch won, I mean, you kind of bridged the gap from where you'd been boxing, and you really performed on that, like kind of your night of nights on that first Froch fight. Canelo-Plant has never really, you mentioned he was Category fight, which to people like ourselves who follow the sport, we know that that's a good win. But he's obviously never been anywhere near the level of a Canelo Alvarez, or certainly a big pay-per-view fight, undisputed titles. How difficult is that going to be for him, do you think, going into that environment?
It's going to be really difficult for him. You know, even if he's thriving in the moment, like this is his moment. And it's a gift. It's a gift. You're going to get the opportunity to inherit all of the good work that Alvarez has done to date. You beat him and you take all the belts, as well as beating the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world. You know, that's a gift. These are the gifts and the challenges that real fighters, will always want. But he's stepping into unknown territory for him, you know, in that this is just a monumental occasion for him. This will be the biggest fight of his life. It'll win, lose or draw, it's all downhill from here, you know, which is, you know, he might beat Alvarez and then go on to win other big fights, but it's never going to, I can't see how he'll ever have a fight of this magnitude and be this much of an underdog fighting the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world for all the belts, and everyone's watching, and it's your time to go out there and do it. So that's tough. That's going to be uber tough for him to contend with. If he's got any shadow of doubt, you know, or any questions that he feels that he hasn't quite solved yet, they're going to, you know, manifest tenfold come fight night. And even if, like, my mindset going in with Froch was just unwavering self-belief, just like uber confident. I was like reveling, like living in the moment, like being in that eye of the storm, you know, but everything was calm, it felt for me. But at the same time, you know, I'm taking on new ground, you know, it's the biggest occasion of my life, you know, it's all going to be downhill from here, you know, it's Wembley Stadium, the first time anyone's ever fought Wembley Stadium. Even if my next 10 fights are at Wembley Stadium, this is always going to be the first time. So, yeah, it's tough. Like, even if you don't realise it at the time, it might take years for it to sink in. He's going to have a lot to contend with, and hopefully for him and for us, the fight fans, that he thrives under this pressure and it brings out the very best of him. He's going to need a very good start, I'd imagine. Like, he doesn't want to be giving any rounds away. Like, his tactics can't be to build into this fight. His tactics got to be to own this fight from the get-go and build from there. Because being this much of an underdog, you can't give anything away. But I'm confident there's something, you know, I'm confident that he's not just like a mouthpiece. You know, he's a tremendous talker. He needs to concentrate on business. And you know, I haven't followed the stuff online, but I know he's bit back at a lot of things. And you know, he got the little cut under his eye from the sunglasses, and got vilified, as well as made a bit of a laughing stock for it and stuff like this. He's put all that to bed, and perform. Like, just go out and do what you feel you're born to do. Go out and perform. And Alvarez is just business as usual, isn't it? Like, he's been there time and time again. He is the star. Like, he is the golden boy of boxing. Like, so he's had his whatever they may have been outside the ring, like his problems at times, you know, some things he's had to overcome, some things that you can tell grinded him, or, you know, made him bite down the gum shield, but ultimately he always revels in the performance. He needs to do that again, or he needs to maintain that, you know, in this next fight and for the rest of his career, so long as he is the guy he is, to keep that motivation and that desire to be the fucking man, you know.
I mean, you mentioned the face to face or the head to head that resulted in the cut and what have you. Obviously, you were partial to a little bit of pre-fight antics, and so to speak. So Canelo-Plant in Vegas with his Rubik's Cube this week. Hopefully we get to see that. But do you think that was advisable, him going and trying to slap Canelo? I mean, it seemed like he really pissed Canelo off, which is something that Billy Joe Saunders also did, and obviously we saw what happened in that fight. Do you think that's advisable? Do you think it actually matters when it comes into the fight on fight night?
I don't see how it can be worse for you. Like, you've pissed Canelo off now. He's gonna train harder, or he's gonna try and beat you up more. So
He's gonna do that.
He's always gonna do that anyway.
Yeah.
You know, if you've pissed him off and he can't, he's now emotionally involved in this fight rather than being logically involved. Then that might be an advantage. As I say, I genuinely think he threw out that pissy, bitchy, swipey sort of hooky pull away just to get a bit of range. He towers over him. He's looking down at him. He's like, man, let me just see how far away you exactly are, because I'm not a left hooker. But if I plan to hit someone and hurt them, then at best you're getting the measuring stick with the left, and then the right hand's flying in. I'm not going to pull away with a open hand left hook from a little meaty guy to come in and I don't know. You can really see it happen all quick, but you know, Plant didn't come off best, did he?
No, it wasn't a strong look.
Didn't come off best. You got to come down to his level. If you got a height advantage, you don't want him to come up at you and you come out high. Don't come out high. Sink down, come down on it, and then pull out low.
So you're giving him like press conference fight tips.
Listen, it's got to be instinctive. I never ever thrown a punch or anything in a press conference because it was so unnatural to me. You know, the bell goes, whoosh, neutral corner. You hit the guy and he goes down, whoosh, stop punching. It's like it has to be instinct. That's what you learn as a little kid, because they take points off you when you're an amateur boxer. Like, you know, if you hit him after the bell, you get disqualified. If you hit him on the way down, you get disqualified. All these things become instinctive. And another instinctive thing is you don't fight in school, you don't fight on the street. You only throw punches in the ring. You don't throw punches at press conference. So maybe it wasn't Plant's full instinct. He wasn't fully prepared for that. You need to learn from that.
He certainly does. It's a difficult one because one of my questions was going to be, who are you giving kind of the best chance to beat Canelo? But you've already kind of gone through, and Callum Smith fried at the weight. Callum Smith only ever beat a washed-up George Groves anyway, apparently.
He did.
And then, of course, Billy Joe Saunders. But essentially picking Canelo-Plant for the upset anyway. But I was going to kind of mention people like David Benavidez. Let's talk about Jamal Charlo moving up from 160. I kind of would still like to see a Golovkin trilogy. I wouldn't mind seeing that 168. But you're already going for Canelo-Plant to shock the world this weekend, so it's pointless me asking you.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen. I think this will be the toughest test to date at super middleweight. Benavidez, he's a big guy, but blows hot and cold. Tested positive for cocaine, and I don't know if he's anything anabolic. Don't want to misrepresent him here. But he seems like his head's a bit screwed. I can't see how he could step up to the plate and perform on the biggest stage until he gets himself sorted. His future might not even be at super middleweight. He's failed the weight a few times, had to vacate the belt for failing the weight. But he is a real talent in the division.
He was supposed to fight his Kata guy recently.
Right,
Until
okay.
his Kata guy pulled out, failed a drugs test. There we go.
These people. Yeah, Golovkin. I mean, is he pushing 40 now?
I think he's 38 now.
38.
I know he's fighting Ryota Murata at the end of the year in
Yeah.
Japan.
Yeah.
Expect him to win that, but
yeah. I mean, I think Golovkin's best days are definitely past him. Right now, I can't see him doing better than he's done before.
never the same since that spar with you, George.
No. And yeah, so you know, I think. Yeah, who else did you say? Was there another name in there? Oh, you're talking about Charlo.
Charlo moving up.
I don't know. It's bizarre. Like, moving up's such a big thing, you know.
You never did, but you were always, sorry to interrupt, you were never moved up to 175. And I remember certainly towards the end of your career, there was a lot of discussion about it or potential for you to go and do that. I know obviously you didn't because of kind of the way your career ended, in a good way, obviously. But why not? Did you ever
So-
really seriously kind of think about it?
Well, it took me so long to win a world title, super middleweight. That's why.
Yeah.
Didn't win one until I was 28. The first time I fought for one, I think I was 24. First one against Froch. So, I was a full super middleweight when I fought Froch the first and second time. Maybe like, is it two years later or something like 2.5, whatever it was. By the time I get round to Chudinov, super middleweight was a real struggle to make. But I couldn't walk away from the opportunities that was coming at super middleweight. That's when all my rankings were, and I could still make the weight. After that, signed into the tournament, so I went there. And the logical thing, I suppose, would have been the next, like, you lose and then you move up in weight, and then just try again at like heavyweight. But when I lost to Callum Smith, I was 30. I'd had enough of boxing. I'd got everything I needed to get out of boxing by then, and the desire, to fight had left me then. I never had a crack at going through any divisions. But I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's a personal preference, but I'm a big fan of the guys that stick at the same weight. Obviously, there are super talents like Alvarez who can go through the divisions, but like 4-weight world champion going up to light heavyweight and winning the belt and come back down, it's just kudos, isn't it? It's just another thing on the CV. You move up for the fights, really, or maybe to win a significant belt. But it's hard. It's hard to become a really good fighter. So most people, it take them a whole career to win a world title and profit at that weight.
Light heavyweight was a real dangerous division as well while you were active as well. I feel like it's now, I don't think it's as deep as it was like when you were boxing, and when, like, you mentioned Kovalev there, the Kovalev fight with Canelo. I think he boxed Anthony Yard 8 weeks before, but he'd been knocked out by a later Alvarez, I think 2 or 3 fights before then. But like you mentioned, kind of the Kovalev from the Ward fights, and obviously the Cleverly fight as well. Obviously we come over here and won the belt. You had Beterbiev when he was younger and fresher, Vosdik, Adonis Stevenson. Whereas I don't feel like it's as deep now. But it was stocked with killers when you were there, and no real money fights at 175 either. So, you want to move up and fight one of these Russians? Probably not.
Yeah.
Did you ever get an offer to fight at 175?
No, I didn't. I was super middleweight. There was a couple of offers that came through over the years. Andre Ward, they were trying to make a Ward fight.
When was that in the George Groves timeline?
That's got to have been either after the first or second Froch loss. It was a time when Ward was obviously still boxing, but Ward was tied up with some contractual issues.
Yeah, he had that issue with Dan Goosen.
So it was Dan Guzman who was in contact with me, and I was like, "Are you sure you look after Ward?" He's like, "Yeah." So I think he was trying to deliver a big fight for Ward to say, "Look, I'm still doing some." I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. But I've never spoke to Ward, and it was a fight that interested me, but at the same time, I was I could have done with probably an easier fight at the time after losing the Froch, So it was an idea, but it never really went anywhere. I can't think who else now. It's DeGale a bunch of times, come up and disappeared.
With DeGale, sorry to jump in. So somebody asked on Twitter the other day why fighters don't fight for the IBF title, or don't always chase the IBF title. How much, if at all, was the rehydration clause a factor of you not chasing the IBF or fighting DeGale? Was that ever, like, with regards to that fight specifically? Was that ever an issue?
No. So we just couldn't agree a split.
Can't imagine that.
Yeah, we just couldn't agree. We just both of us just too bullish in our thoughts. Like neither of us wanted to give the other one anything. So we couldn't agree a split. Even when we were both champion.
Which would have taken out the rehydration clause if you'd have unified. So that would have been a problem.
I didn't know that, yeah. Oh, that would have been interesting. So when I fought, there was a rehydration clause when I fought Froch for the WBA on IBF. We still had to do a £10 weigh-in the next day. I would have made it. this is the problem with boxing right now, right? Is they're trying to pretend to make it safer by doing these check weigh-ins, but all you're doing is making it more dangerous. How come there's more brain injuries now than ever before, and yet there's more due diligence in making weight? Because all they do is weigh you on the scales. They don't test your hydration levels. So the toughest thing for a fighter, for some fighters, is making weight, right? And you make weight the day before, and then you used to be able to hydrate, you know, and you've got 30 to 36 hours usually. Yeah, so 12 o'clock midday Friday, and then you weigh in, 10 o'clock you might fight in main event Saturday night. Now they want you to do a 3-day weight check where you've got to be in, 2 or 3% of your weight, and they want to do a 7-day weight check, and they want to do a 2-week weight check, and they want to do.
Yeah, I think the WBC do like 37 and 3, I think.
Yeah, but that's if you're fighting for WBC, and then you might have the IBF in there as well, or WBA, and they want to do that, and then British Boxing Board of Control want to do that. You end up making weight like 5 or 6 times, because that doesn't mean, oh right, I'm getting down to my fight weight 3%. All that means is I'm fighting at 76.2 kilos. Wednesday before day before the fight, I got to be 76.2. Wednesday before the fight, I got to be 78. The Saturday before, I've got to be 79. This one's got to be thinking, and I'm drying out from 82 each and every time. In, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. My fight week was occupied by making weight. Nothing illegal about it. It's WBC. When I fought for the WBC title, they gave me in the build up to it. They gave me a sweatsuit. I've got it. It's the best sweatsuit I've ever had. I could shift untold fluid in it. It's amazing. Sometimes it comes off easy. Sometimes it doesn't. But this is out like you. But you can't do that. You can't like test fighters' hydration levels because it's not fair. Like it's not fair. I'd have to be a cruiserweight if they did that. Like, and I can't fight at cruiserweight, So I think, I genuinely think that they should scrap all these weight checks in the build-up. Just have the weigh-in. Because fighters are now doing something that's much more dangerous in that they're cheating, like in that they're... Sorry, I don't want to say that. Scrap that. They're not cheating. They're manipulating their weight by cutting fluid, check weigh, back on, cutting fluid, check weigh, back on. And obviously nothing's as hard as cutting fluid for the fight, because that's the lightest you've got to be the day before. But there's a lot of fighters out there that's now their new routine, and I don't think that's healthy, because you're dehydrating the brain. And if you're doing that the night before the fight and you've got plenty of time to rehydrate, great. But what if you've got a check weigh, 2 weeks out from the fight, Saturday morning, and you've got sparring that afternoon? You can't postpone that sparring. You need that sparring for the fight. And you've got fucking hard sparring. This is your last big spar, mate. This is 12 rounds. We've got 3 or 4 sparring partners coming in. You've got 2 flown in from the States. It's something that people out there, like people involved in boxing who make decisions, should really sort of investigate, I think, because it's part of boxing, and it's a dangerous part of boxing.
It's sort of like the last taboo, isn't it? Really, I mean, obviously, performance enhancing drugs gets. I think it gets more kind of publicity, you know what I mean, kind of more coverage than weight making. But as you mentioned there, it's kind of something that really does need sorting out across the board as well, because you get with the IBF rehydration clause and somebody goes, well, that doesn't really work for me, so I'll go this route, or well, that doesn't really work for me, the weight management program of the WBC, so I'll go the WBA route. And then you kind of get, I mean, you sometimes get with the WBA, like I always make the point of like German fighters or European fighters, the way that they do the weight compared to UK fighters and US fighters is very, very different. And you'll often see European fighters from Germany or what have you boxing guys from over here, and it looks like they're in completely different weight classes. So I think something like probably needs to be done to kind of have an overall but that's just kind of boxing in general, isn't it?
It's part of boxing in general. Like, it's part of boxing in general. So you will try and nick every advantage you can possibly get in the build up to a fight. And what is, but you're having a fight where you could seriously hurt the guy in front of you. So you are compromised emotionally. At the same time, you've got to win. Like, so where does your moral compass sit? The easiest way to do it is go, well, what are the rules? As long as I stick to the rules, then my moral compass is fine. This is a banned substance, so I can't have that as a performance enhancing substance. This isn't, but this is going to help me. He doesn't have the money for this, or he doesn't have the knowledge of this, but that's his problem. I'm going to take it. I'm going to have it. I'm getting real deep here. Lots of things that I don't really know too much about. I ain't got a clue about drugs and therapeutic exemptions and all these other things that are now part and parcel of sport in general, not just boxing. I never even took a painkiller for 10 years because I was so scared of testing positive for something that was nothing and then being tarnished as a drugs cheat,
Kind of puts that black cloud over your whole career.
It does for certain people. Some people they can dance away from it with the dodgy meat stories and stuff like that. But if I spent thousands of pounds each camp on like food, nutrition, supplementation, that's an advantage. That's an advantage. Is that a fair advantage if the other guy ain't getting it? I had my gloves were handmade Grant gloves. They cost me $500 a go, but it's because they were amazing. And then I could supply my partner, my opponent with Grant gloves, but he ain't getting the bespoke ones that cost $500. He's getting the factory run ones. Yeah. My gloves are better than his, but they're still Grant, and they're both legal. They're both sanctioned, by the British Boxing Board Control or whoever the wider sanctioned body is. So it's loads of advantages you can nick in boxing. Home advantage, fucking having people on your side, and so it's difficult with your moral compass. Like, you can only really stick to what the rules are as such. And I just think this hydration stuff that's come in now. Speaking as a fighter who was a super middleweight, a big super middleweight, who had to manipulate his weight throughout camp to appease the weight checks, just like I did on fight, just like I did for the weigh-in. So I've got nothing. I'm the one taking a risk here because I'm the one who's training with, dehydrated. I'm taking the risk. Everyone cuts weight on fight night for the weigh-in. Some people like to do it for a week beforehand. Some people like to crash it out the night before. There's very few and far between who don't have to take anything off, to make a championship weight and then fight. So that might be something. It's the first time I've actually spoke about it publicly, but it's something I've been thinking about for a long time now. I don't have the solution. I don't have the answer. I don't have a better suggestion for health and safety in boxing, but I don't think the check weights are the way to do it.
Well, it's interesting. Moving away from making weight, we've spoken about Carl Froch, spoken about James DeGale. Might as well touch upon one of your other rivals before we move on. Lesser rival, but Chris Eubank Jr., somebody I know that you kind of, one of my favourite interviews, we spoke about this before, is post DeGale Eubank, with you and Eubank in the dressing room and going over to congratulate your friend Eubank for his victory over your not friend James DeGale. What do you make of Chris Eubank Jr. recently? Obviously, he's hooked up with Roy Jones Jr. We're still kind of waiting for this big fight to happen with him sometime in the near future. December is kind of the mooted date. Don't know whether or not that's still up-to-date information. But, yeah, Chris Eubank Jr., Where do you sit with him? Well, he's now back down at middleweight. Where do you sit with him currently?
Yeah, I mean, going back down to middleweight, I wasn't sure was the right move for him as such, because he'd spent a significant amount of time at super middleweight, and he wasn't the tallest, but he's grown into that weight. It's not like he carries a lot of weight that needs to come off. Like, so getting back down looked a bit tough, and he looked a lot leaner in at middleweight, and I just wonder whether that's them guys sometimes they're a little bit too lean. It's harder to take the body shots when you're that tight at the weight, or and definitely affects your chin as well. But I think what we need from Chris Eubank Jr. is a big name and a big fight. He's got the name himself to attract the big fights. Sky now will look to him as their biggest name, I think, barring some of the guys they might pick up from ESPN and Top Rank, he's a bigger name than Taylor, but he obviously doesn't have the belts. Fury's still with BT. I'm not sure if that's going to continue, but Eubank is the guy who could be the A side of a pay-per-view fight, but really what we want to see him in is for a world title or against a big name, preferably both. And that's what I want. I want to see him tested at some point, not next year. I think he must have had a torrid time. His brothers died this year. They are a really close family, so that must be bizarre. And he lives in the public eye, Chris. So, and he has done for most of his life. So, it must be real difficult for him to know how to think and feel right now, and what to give away and what not. So I give him grace. Like, I give him maybe one more fight, but then next year, if he does want to go out and do what he says he's going to do, he's got to go out there and perform. Fascinated to see how the Roy Jones link up really plays out, because I don't think we've seen any of it really.
So it needs a live test really before you can really get.
Yeah. Because sometimes it's hard pulling off the new moves when the guy in front of you ain't asking the questions. So you might be able to get that stuff off, but it's not the same. You usually get that at the start of your career. You're working with a pro coach and you're learning new things, and you're way down the card somewhere. I was down learning stuff off Adam Booth, working alongside David Hay, trying stuff out in fights. Up in Sunderland on a Frank Maloney show when he was Frank. I'll be on a Matchroom card somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Satanta shows here and there, and that's when you're trying out new stuff. He can't really do that now, so he's gonna have to learn it in the gym and then put it into practice straight away. But tough. I can't think now exactly all the middleweight world champions, but you could probably give all of them a good fight, but you definitely wouldn't pick him the favourite for any of them. Murata, Charlo, Golovkin. I like the Golovkin fight. I think it might be right time, right place. He's got a fantastic engine, Junior. He's got a good chin. He's very strong, physically very tough. Decent hand speed, power's okay. Neglects his jab and stuff like this, like the fundamentals he's never had. But if he can get some tactics spot on, like if he can listen to Jones and Jones can see what Junior's capable of and then put a plan together, they could have some real success. So he's a diligent student of the art, Chris. I thought he would just be, a name and nothing else when he first turned pro, but he's gone way beyond then. He's a legitimate world ranked fighter. I wish him great success. I hope he does win a full world title one day. I just think he's going to need a bit of an upset at the moment at middleweight to do so. But who knows? Alvarez might beat Plant and vacate a bunch of belts, and then there might be a free for all sooner or later. the right fight can get set up for him. So yeah, I'm looking for. He's a star. Like he's fascinating, Junior. He knows how to play the game. He knows how to create interest. He's gonna have the full back in the sky next year. They're gonna be looking to make something monstrous. So let's see what it is.
Has coaching ever kind of flitted through your mind in the? How long have you been retired now? It must be 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
I haven't thrown a punch in 3 years.
I
Retired.
should hope not. You're retired.
Yeah. That's what I mean. So the Callum Smith fight, my last fight was September 18. So it's 3 years. Yeah. I go down to Dale Youth Amateur Boxing Club on a Sunday. Take the kids for and to say kids just sounds like you're coach. They're all men, don't it? take the lads on pads. I watch them run around the hill. I got jealous, so I wanted to jump in on this hill. I've been doing this hill run at the gym since I was like 11, but I didn't want to participate with them. So we go Sunday morning. I get there at 9:30 before they get there at 10. I do a few laps, so I don't have to compete. And then I watch them run round. We go back to the gym, take them on the pads, try and teach them all to fight like Alvarez, like Canelo. Strong base, good feet, use your hips, punch loose, tight fist, loose arms. And then, but that's about as far as my coaching is prepared to go. I've got a lot of knowledge. Like, I
love that head turn. I've got a lot of knowledge.
I know a lot of shit, I just don't know if I've got the patience to work with someone, I popped down. I'm still friends with Shane. I popped down the gym, from sporadically. I've been down his gym and I'm watching the guys.
You've been to the new gym?
Yeah. Leighton.
Yeah,
I think So there, and then I saw some of the new guys in there. I seen Lawrence in there.
Busy old place now.
Yeah, he's got a whole bunch of fighters. He's got obviously the Dubois siblings now.
Yep. The Azim
Caroline
brothers as well.
Azim brothers, who they came out of Dale as well. So Ellie, I see Ellie in there last week. She'd just left Booth, so we got a connection. And but she's a fantastic fighter. Wow, she's pint sized. Obviously, she's tiny. But she's so neat and tidy. Punches really well, really correct. I'm really excited to see her bounce off the other guys in the gym, as well as seeing what Shane can inject into her. I expect her to make some real drastic improvements. Not that she needs it, but just because she's capable of it. In a real short space of time. If she doesn't, definitely holding Shane accountable. But yeah, I was really impressed with her. CBS is in there, the old donkey, and he's the old boy now. CBS,
he's doing all right though, isn't he? He's like,
oh, what a fighter! What a fighter! No, he is. He's carrying around that European title. He's living the high life now, isn't he? He's on the bench. I think he's on the board at Bournemouth Football Club now, is he? He's a Londoner. He's moved to London. So Chris is out in a couple of weeks. He did that little sketch in coming out the sea like James Bond. Yeah. What do you think?
I thought it was shot quite nice, but because it was Chris and because I know Chris pretty well, it was a bit cheesy.
He loved it.
Yeah, but you could tell as well. You could tell, like, afterwards I was speaking to him about it, and yeah.
What did he say?
The James Bond shout from him. He's like, yeah, I felt like James Bond. I was like, yeah, you're not.
Oh, no, it was great. I'm happy for Chris.
But you and Chris go way back, like, since before he turned pro. Like, he was, had Chris on the podcast, and he's spoken about this in the past, of kind of, he openly admits of being a George Groves fanboy and kind of going and travelling and sparring you before he turned over as a pro. So it must be great for you to see him kind of go from, as your words, not mine, the donkey he was, to a European champion now.
No, I'm saying he's the donkey now. He wasn't even the donkey before. Now he's the workhorse. Yeah. I like Chris. I've got so much time for Chris. Yeah. Dedicated to his craft, and he's only scratching the surface of what he will go on to achieve and is capable of. And I'm really happy for him. for that. As I say, a boxing fan first and foremost, and lovely guy, great fighter, who is making huge improvements and improving, across the board, as his stock rises. So I'm really happy for him. I mean, you got to have them opportunities there in the first place, but then you got to go out there and take them. So he got the opportunity to win the European title after winning the Commonwealth, and I'm really happy he did it. He boxed great. It's been tough, obviously, with COVID and everything gets locked down, and the world's ending. That's tough when you're on a ticking clock and you've got a career, and you've only got a year lost in your career could feel like the end of days. But he kept himself busy enough. He's got that opportunity, a European title, won it. He's out again in a couple of weeks. So no, I think it's amazing for him. I'll give him stick because he's my mate. That's about it, really. Otherwise I'll just be his fanboy now. I am always have done, and I always will do. Have an awful lot of time for CBS, for Chris Billum-Smith. The only thing is I don't like the gentleman.
Why not?
Because he hasn't gone all in.
So you need to go. Would you need to have like a top hat and a monocle and
yes.
See that? There you go. That's not a bad shout, to be fair.
We all got to do it. Like I was the same. I had the coat of armor, ring walk. I had
Bus.
No, but that was gone then. I'd already made it. Like I already got to that level where I could drop out and went plain blue. But yeah, like let's have some fun, man. If you want, he thinks he's James Bond. He wants to be James Bond. He needs to more 007. Like, what are you, Chris? You James Bond or you a gentleman?
He calls himself the gentleman, and then he comes out to Kano every fight. There's not. Yeah, there is a disparity there, isn't there? There needs to be some sort of like. It's incongruous, isn't it? It doesn't really fit.
Where's gentleman? What about him is gentlemanly?
He's a nice fella.
No, but you're talking about him like because you know him. I don't know. I've never met him. Why is he a gentleman? What can I see now that he's a gentleman?
That's what it have to be. It's your 00 CBS. That's rubbish, though, isn't it?
We'll come back to it. We'll come up with something.
Okay, we'll come up with something for CBS he's fighting next weekend, which has come around very, very quickly. Dylan Brigion, I think his name is, fighting a big, awkward southpaw. Should be really fun for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting period of time down at Shane McGuigan's gym.
Yeah, thriving, busy, loads of good fighters in there, all bounce off each other. They had the disappointment of Fowler losing the other week. Started real good, real strong. You felt like he caught Smith off guard. Smith's a wily old pro now. He's been pro. I think it was 13 years and he knows all the little tricks. And he's from a boxing family. Been in the gym. They know what they're doing. And Fowler's still a bit green, even though he's been in with Shane for a while now. He still fights a bit green. But started well. Cut Smith. Looked like he hurt him in the first round. But then it was like a bit of a change attack. As soon as Fowler got cut, it looked like he started to unravel a little bit. He doesn't vary his power quite enough. He leaves his head in range after his punch. I know this is all stuff that obviously they must have really worked on hard to come away with, to get away from. But I thought it was a great fight to watch, and sad for Team Fowler it would be to lose. And maybe even a little bit of a big relief for the Smith team at some point because they was expected to win, but the right fight to be made, And Fowler at the end said that he thought he could have done with a couple more stepping stone fights before then, but you ain't gonna get that, Fowler turned pro late, and he's already had an upset in his career, and we've had COVID. This was a good fight for him, definitely a winnable fight. He showed that in his performance, and obviously being two Liverpudlians in Liverpool, made for a big fight as well. So I'm not sure what his plans will be now.
He's moving up, isn't he?
Yeah, I think moving up is probably a good shout. I'm not sure how tight he is at the weight, but he does look like he's been going into camp to make weight since he first turned pro. So that takes its toll. It's only sometimes you can go to the well, move up, feel a bit more rejuvenated, maybe feel a bit stronger in the legs, take the shots a bit better, and go from there. So wish Fowler well, and all the fighters down at McGuigan's gym.
What's your current involvement in boxing? I know you were working with Wasserman, of course, who looked after your commercial side of things, or managed you at the later stages of your career. Later stage, quite a significant part of your career. What are you doing now in between? Obviously, winding Carl Froch up every couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, I do a lot of appearances, motivational talks.
How's that going? I've been meaning to ask about that. So talk about that, because that's something that we spoke about when I think the retirement. I came to your house. You remember when you retired and did an interview then? I remember at the time I was having a laugh about, your David Brent motivational speaking and what have you. So how's that been going?
Don't turn it off. Let it play right to the end. Don't turn it off. No, it's good, man. It's good. It's really good. I got my 7 key traits to how to become a champion. So I teach people how to become a champion. I talk about my journey, my path, how I win a world title at the 4th attempt, and to be fair, I never had it easy, So ultimately, the 7 traits are what build resilience and confidence. So it's the tough times that you have to get over that build the resilience, and the unwavering self-belief that comes, that sure is a bit instinctive, and some people take to it more naturally than others, but still you have to nurture it. You have to, you have to build it. And it comes through these 7 key traits. I'm not going to tell you what they are.
You have to buy a ticket.
You'll buy a ticket, yeah. You're going to have to sign up. Buy it. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to stagger it over 7 phases, isn't I? But I talk, I try and relate. It's obviously got to relate to myself. I talk about key situations in my career that I had to overcome, being... not getting selected for the Olympic qualifiers, not going, watching James DeGale win gold, when I wanted to go, going into the rematch with him, as a 3 to 4 to 1 underdog, for the British title, fighting Froch with no trainer, and losing at Wembley Stadium and all the, going to Vegas and losing a split decision to Badu Jack on the Mayweather undercard. When I'm thinking, wow, what is my life going to be now? Is you're thinking about life instead of boxing. It's always been life after boxing. Now it's life instead of boxing, and how you come back, and how you get there, and how nice it feels when you finally achieve your goal. So I do a few of them. Sometimes they're just like a promoter wants for a ticket show, or it's part of their thing, their setup, or a corporate setup. But what I love doing as well is obviously being there at the fights, seeing the action and throwing my 2 cents in. That's how I get my boxing fix now. I remember talking to Stephen Gerrard years and years ago, before he was managing clubs, and saying, how are you getting on after he's retired? And he said, yeah, man. He goes, I do the bit. It might have been at Sky or BT at the time. He's like, that's how I get my football fixed. And I was like, he's like, yeah. He goes, it's easy work. And that's what I like doing now. So, whether it be Sky, Channel 5, I haven't done BT for a long time. I definitely won't get a call to go to the Zone. But if I'm covering the boxing, I'm there, give my 2 cents worth, and get my boxing fix. Get to see some live action, and be part of the fraternity, which is fun. It's really fun. I'm doing the show in Sky, the Sky show, November 20th. Got Jose Burton headlining, but the card might change around a little bit anyway. Sky have got this new era of boxing, which we all know about now. Obviously, they've linked up with Ben Shalom, who runs Boxer, which is a tournament
Why would you never work with the zone? Why would that happen? The call not come.
I think they've already got their team. Do you know what I mean? They've already got their team.
What's the relationship like with you and Eddie nowadays? Because obviously you had your prickly moments over the
Yeah,
years.
yeah. No, I mean,
You did great business with each
yeah,
other.
we're fine. We're fine. Like, as in, I've got no problem with it. I'm sure he's got zero problems with me. Like, he wouldn't care less about me, and likewise about Eddie. I rate him. I think he's a very good promoter. Like, for a long time, I did wonder, like, what is it all about? But I've seen him in action. I've seen him walk into a room and charm the pants off of everyone in the room. When, it's a talent. It's a very talent. It's a tremendous talent, and he's got a real likable side to him, and I wished his own the greatest success. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I was around when Satanta launched, and they had a run at it, and they folded. They bid too big on football and couldn't keep up. Then I was there at the launch of Box Nation when they went boxing only subscription channel. But I think this is definitely a different thing. Eddie's very different to Frank Warren, and the investment and everything else that they've got in boxing. The zone it's a totally different animal. I wouldn't say I'm confident of its future, I suppose, just because I've seen things go wrong before.
You've experienced it.
But it's exciting. I like what they're doing. The only concern I always have is like, and it's not the zone, it's everyone, is like, I want to keep the authenticity of boxing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got YouTube fighters who are taking pay-per-view slots, and that's fine to a certain degree. Like Jake Paul, it's Jake Paul. Jake Paul's the number one guy, isn't it? Yeah. So he's famous dude, but he's been training like a pro fighter for years now. He's just not very good, but that's by the by. But at least he's dedicated to the cause, and you meet the backroom staff, the presenters, and the cameramen and everyone else who put the production together, and they're very excited to see Jake Paul. But be careful, watch this space, because they're taking, like when I was fighting, this guy's taking my job, but soon his YouTuber mates are going to be taking your jobs, and all of a sudden we're gonna cut back through to this YouTuber to hear his opinion on the fight.
Yeah.
What do you think? Well, I think it's a great fight. How on earth? What do you know? It was the last time you got punched in the face.
Starting to see it now. Like there's YouTubers who are doing more work now, and we're starting to see it now. It's kind of, I guess, it's a bloody cliche that we've heard a lot of. It's kind of crossing over to the digital age and kind of cross over into that market. But
yeah. But I mean, like, I don't think it will happen in football. Football don't quite stand for it. I mean, you haven't got to play at the top end level to have an opinion, but you've got to have done something. And you still got to have had them guys in there that have done it. You put Match of the Day on, it's still Lineker and Shearer, and Jermaine Genius probably, he's the one who I like to listen to so much, and he didn't get to their level, but he got to a great level. He knew what he did. You know about him. He's just a natural presenter, and you're going to have that more and more in football, because there's more people who are footballers than there are boxers who could then carry on and present on TV. But you still want to hear the opinions of people who know, So that's my gripe. Something to moan about, isn't it?
Yeah, sitting around these YouTubers.
What does he know? What does he know?
Sitting with your pipe and your slipper.
Yeah. It takes a while. It takes a while to know, to be in the know. But it's all good. It's all good. Me and Carl did the Sky Show the other week. Carl knows a little bit about boxing. Not as much as me, but he knows a bit. He knows how to get hit.
I bet he's got.
He knows how to take a right hand. Yeah. He knows how to have a push and a pull.
Like people every time I see that come up, I always try and go back and grab the clip of the last time we did the podcast, which we spoke about before, being the face-to-face intimate setting, and the reaction of you with the push and the pull. and you said at the time it was the first time you'd watched it since it had happened. Or
Yeah,
it was
I mean,
one-
I've seen the clip like
yeah.
a billion times, but I've never seen the show. I haven't watched Gloves Are Off because
You weren't happy with
that
your
was terrible.
performance,
Yeah.
What was happening? You overthink things? Carl gave you
Just
something that you didn't.
No, I was
expect?
shattered. Like, I was shattered. I was tired. I was right into camp then. Way into camp. I'm on the diet. I'm trying to juggle 15 different things at once. Got like just loads and loads going on. And I'd been at Sky for hours and hours and hours. Was on the tour, and Carl was talking about his day that day where Eddie paid for a chopper, like a helicopter, to fly him from wherever he was, Sheffield or wherever he was training, to Sky, and then flew him home because 15, 20, half an hour in a helicopter's quicker than 3 hours in the car. Thinking, fucking hell, I was there about 7 hours. And I hope that helicopter didn't come out the budget, the expenses budget that came off the top of the show. Otherwise, I've paid for, a proportion of that helicopter. Fucker. No, I was really tired. And then the brain just wasn't kicking into gear. And I knew this one was important because it was the Gloves Are Off. It was their like little cornerstone show. So I wanted to give a good account of myself. And then it ended up being the clips I've seen, I'm just like a little bit too stary, a little bit too moody. Probably trying to get a bite. At this point, Carl sort of blocked me from everything, and he's not engaging with anything. So he probably doesn't even want to be here for this Gloves Are Off, but he's ready for it. He's mentally prepared. I'd already done like all the socials, the Sky socials, been on Sky Sports News. I've been there for hours. I was literally talked out. And I just remember him saying like, everything for a reason. What does that mean? And I didn't have the answer. I was like, I don't know. I don't know. So, if I had a bit more wits about me and I didn't have the answer, then I just look at him and say, don't worry about it, Carl. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Exactly. It's way above your fucking pay grade, mate. You couldn't even begin to comprehend. But I didn't. I was like stuttering and bumbling. And again, this is just what I think I was doing, trying to remember. I haven't watched it back because it's like, I didn't watch them stuff back. It didn't go well. Do you know what I mean? There's not a lot I do watch back. But Gloves Are Off. Not my finest hour. But then again, neither was the Wembley fight. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of a sign of things to come, mate, to be honest with you.
For a while, yeah. It's all downhill from there, Rob.
It was down, but then persistence and becoming a champion.
Hey, we come back resilience.
There we go, resilience.
Unwavering self-belief. There was one phrase that I was sitting on for about 4 months. I was like, just don't say it. And then I think I had Kugan Cassius or someone else backstage in Liverpool and saying, what do you make of Carl? I said, oh, I'm still better than Carl. Us can still beat Carl any day of the week. And I was like, I just couldn't help myself. You're going to get so much stick for this. Cobra'd. But I stand by those my remarks. Unwavering self-belief.
Well, there we go. You've come too far now.
Yeah.
And I know you're not a fan of management speak, George, but...
Of who?
Of management speak.
Go on and go for it.
And talking around the point. No, I was making a bad Office reference. But yeah, where was I going to go with this next? That was it, because I knew that you're not going to like this. So let's talk about the heavyweights, because I know that you love heavyweight boxing.
Yeah, let's talk about heavyweights.
We mentioned Anthony Joshua earlier on against Alexander Usyk. I actually did pick Mr. Usyk to win the fight. Don't get many.
Hater.
Don't get many right, so I have to take the win where it's, when it's there. But yeah, I mean, we've spoken a lot in this kind of podcast about making weight and moving up in weight and size and this, that, and the other. But it kind of went to show that, a good big un doesn't always beat a good little un.
Yeah. But they should.
Are you in the camp of kind of Joshua didn't do certain things, or Usyk was just too good for him and will be too good for him again in the rematch regardless?
I think Anthony Joshua is a very good fighter, very good athlete. Technically does a lot of things well. He's limited by his size, But if you're gonna fight someone that much smaller than you, you should never get beat. You know, if you're like number 1, number 2 middleweight in the world, you shouldn't be getting beat by the number 1 like welterweight in the world. You know, Josh Taylor shouldn't be able to beat Charlo, shouldn't be able to beat Golovkin, because even if he's outboxing him, Golovkin should be able to just whack him, and it's over with. You know, and that's the problem I've got with heavyweights. I'm always gonna have it with heavyweights because their ability and their skill just it's unrivaled when you have to come down through the divisions. I think in the Usyk will be better in the rematch, and I don't see Joshua being that much better. You're not going to learn anything. You're not going to learn anything new. Might be able to change his tactics a bit and have a little bit more success. But Usyk's the one who's going to have improved the most from that fight. Usyk grew up in the Ukrainian amateur boxing system. These fighters are amazing. You know, like just to become good enough to represent Ukraine, you've got to be a phenomenal fighter. You know, and that goes for all them Eastern Bloc countries. You know, whether you're Bulgarian, Russian, Ukrainian,
Like the Kazakh.
I mean, yeah. Then you're like Kazakh, Uzbekistanis. Like these fighters were brilliant and like so well schooled. And Usyk's there, like, you know, he's doing handstands and backflips and juggling and the rest of it, like, and he's just showing off his motor neurons and his strengths and his skills. I mean, he's not a clown, so he's funny, but he doesn't need to do that anymore. You're the man now. You don't have to juggle for your dinner, you know, like you get paid regardless. So he'll be doing that for our pleasure if he does it. I'm looking forward to some new tricks, some different tricks. But I think he'll be better. Like, he would have learned and took more from that fight. He knows how to cut out and make an angle. You know, he'll throw a jab, and it's not just the jab, you know. He'll shoot up to show low. He'll show low to shoot high. You know, he'll feint with the jab first. He'll step with the jab. He'll step back off the jab. He'll throw the jab from a high hand position, from a low hand position. You know, like, I'm putting together a jab seminar. I'm trying to whittle it down to 4 days. You know, if most heavyweights are, you know, if they ask them to teach you your jab, it'll take them about 15 minutes. You know, the depth that comes in, that, you know, that you need to have to get to the highest level in pretty much all the sports, bar in heavyweight, is night and day, because you've got so much natural size and the power's there. You know, Joshua's a phenomenal athlete. There's probably half dozen sports he could get to elite level with if he had pursued them, because he's 6'6", 17 stone, muscle, like, solid. Watching the fight at the time, there was like, part of me was just like, I couldn't hear the commentary. I was at an event, so we just had the big screen, and I was like, is anyone telling him, just go for it now, just wing, like, punch, like, just shoot, like, chest, aim for the chest, like, it's a much bigger and easier target to hit. You can pull away with the head, but aim for the chest. Just keep whacking. In one round, he caught him with a body shot that looked like it was a good shot that he might be able to build from, and he never got it off again. Like, he should. If you're that much bigger than someone, you should always be able to beat them. Like, you really should. Like, when you're growing up and you're on the GB squad, the middleweights don't spar the welterweights because you're both elite level kids, you know, but you ain't going to get nothing out of it, you know. The middleweights might spar the light middleweights, or if the welterweights, whatever they may be, or the light heavyweights, or vice versa. That's about it. But when you're that much bigger than someone, you always should be able to beat them. And that's moving on again to Fury Wilder, you know. I picked Wilder to win. I thought Wilder might beat by Fury. I thought Fury's headspace might be a bit different. I thought Wilder would be a bit more switched on. What I didn't factor in was just that Wilder's just too set in his ways, where he doesn't have that boxing brain. He doesn't have that ability to vary the jab, vary the power, vary the timing, vary the tempo, like change his course of action. It was just like, here's the tactics, hit him downstairs early, which was the right thing to do. You throw great jabs, great right hands to stomach, try to chop Fury down, slow him down, water in the basement, as like Deck Taylor always says. Love that expression.
Big up Deck Taylor.
Yeah. So, but he gassed out after 3 rounds. I mean, like, I know you had the record amount of one round KOs, you know, and you was the the best KO artist in heavyweight history at some point. But surely by now you got to this standard, you know how to take your foot off the gas and have a breather at times. You know, I mean, it was a great fight to watch, really entertaining fight. I didn't watch it live. I knew the result and watched it again in the morning. Still enjoyed it. But you know, he got dropped. He got up. He walked Fury onto a right hand, which sort of looked like it really definitely hurt Fury. Got him over again. Couldn't finish it. Fury was buzzed for a few rounds, and Wilder was spent. And then he lands him later, and the fight gets stopped. But sadly for Wilder, he's also given away 3 stone in weight. You know, to a guy who's 6'9", eye on 20 stone. And yeah, he's carrying he's not shredded, Fury, but still a big man.
Yeah, it's just naturally big, just a naturally much.
Just a huge man, you know.
And you can see that Wilder had kind of pumped himself up in between. Yeah. Even certainly between fights 1 and 2, but even 2 and 3, obviously he went from 231, I think it was like 237 or 238 or something in the third fight, and you could kind of tell. Like we did the post fight stuff with Barry Jones. And he said that, Wilder was in theory doing all the right things, jabbing to the body, throwing the straight right hand to the body, looking to bring it down to put the right hand over the top. But because he kind of had all of this additional muscle and Wilder even said, with what I'm bench pressing, he won't be able to throw me around in the clinch. And it's like, well, he will, because he's 6'9", and as you say, nearly 20 stone. He's naturally bigger. He's always going to be able to move you around. But Barry said that when he was jabbing to the body, his feet were too far apart, because that's what he's like. That's what he's been throughout his whole career. And as you mentioned, he's not varying the tempo of the jab. It's every jab. If he's jabbing you to the body, he wants to break your ribs with every jab. And before you know it, after 3 rounds, he's spent. I can't imagine that being a fight that... Yeah, I think if they were to fight again, which I hope they don't, because we've seen it 3 times already, I think you would kind of know now, how that fight would always go. Yeah.
He's always got that. He's got equalizer power, Wilder. But if you don't land it, then it doesn't matter, does it? You know what I mean? They could fight every week. It's just going to be whether he lands that big shot or not before he's cooked. It
was also interesting to me to see that as soon as Fury landed a 1-2 at the end of the first round, and then Wilder from the second round onwards, there was no more jabs to the body or right hands to the body. He just went back to what he did throughout his whole career. The old adage of everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth and what have you. Just going back to Joshua, because one thing that I wanted to ask you about him, obviously you were not shy about changing trainers at certain points in your career, with great success most of the time. Joshua seems to be in a bit of a, I don't know, quandary or so, whatever you want to call it. He's had Rob McCracken in his corner throughout his career. Recently, he's had Angel Fernandez, Joby Clayton. He seems to be doing the rounds in America at the minute. I did an interview with Coogan recently where he kind of alluded to potentially having 4 guys in his corner. What do you think he needs to do? Does he need to take the plunge now? Does he need to change to see what's out there? What do you make of the whole situation? Because obviously he stayed with Rob after the first Ruiz fight, won the rematch. But it seems like he's at this crossroads now in his career with regards to his training. What are your thoughts on the whole situation with him and his training?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real complex situation that no one's going to be privy to, or no one's going to really know. Even these parts of his team probably won't know how he's thinking and feeling right now. He's never changed, never left Rob. So and he spoke after the Ruiz fight. Spoke about loyalty a lot, and I appreciate that. I understand loyalty. At the same time, it's a ruthless sport, So and it's win. You got to win. If you're not winning, then what's the point? if he's come to a point where he feels like he needs a change, and that's lots of fighters have that where they just need a change, and it happens organically. It doesn't necessarily mean anything's gone wrong, like you got to separate from your trainer or whatnot. It's just that the relationship has run its course, you know. But where he's at and what's in front of him right now, if I'm Joshua, like I would be looking for a vastly experienced American coach to come in and do camp, like an Emmanuel Stewart type character. Obviously, Stewart's not with us anymore, so I don't know who that is. I don't know who. You know, Sugar Hill's obviously training Fury, so you know that might have been a fit, but he should look at some fighters, you know, who he likes the look of, and then sort of work your way backwards like that, and then try and get involved in the trainers that they've worked with. You're not going to like sort of reinvent the wheel here. You're not going to. You might be able to change your style that suits your style, the attributes that you've naturally acquired, you know, and technically Joshua throws every shot pretty good. Like, you know, his fundamentals are pretty good. Like, his jab's good, his right hand's good, his left hook's good, his uppercut is good. You know, like but sometimes there's nothing clever about it either. You know, as I say, there's no real setup, or at least I ain't seen it. You know, he hasn't needed it, and then when he has needed it, he hasn't been able to find it. You know, so whether he spent, like, 'cause he's amateur and pro now, he's been with Rob McCracken, whether Rob's got nothing else left to show him or teach him or bring him on, and the guys that he's brought in to supplement Rob haven't quite done it for him either. He's got to go out and find something new. So I don't know what the list is, and I wouldn't know where to start really. He's got a question, like, you know, it's your desire now as well, you know, like he's got this rematch, he's got to win it, you know. If he don't, what does he do? You know, if he doesn't fight, is that the end of the world? What does he do if he doesn't? You know, if he fights and wins, has he already got an exit strategy in mind? You know, is it just fight and win and stop? Is it fight and win and unify? He's probably dog tired of talking about it, and he can't do this in the, you know, out of the public eye. You know, it's like we're sitting here talking about Joshua's American tour, trying to find a trainer. It's tough, man. This is probably be the toughest thing he's ever had to do. And who's he put trust in? Probably the person who he would go to for boxing advice is Rob McCracken, the guy he's trying to replace. So even if Rob says, I'm stepping away and here's a bunch of names to follow, that's tough to follow his advice when the reason you're changing because you think his advice ain't quite working. So I don't know. I don't know who there's no one who jumps out as a quick fit, but that would be like the sort of thing that I would be thinking about, is like a vastly experienced American coach to come in for a camp, you know, like a Freddie Roach does, but you know, I don't think Freddie Roach is the right guy for him, you know.
I think Ronnie Shields, one of the names that's been mentioned, I think it's a good shout.
Yeah,
he's got heavyweight experience as well, which I think is important if you're working with a heavyweight. I think to have worked with heavyweights, he's worked with Vander Holyfield, Mike Tyson. I think that's certainly a definite positive for Ronnie Shields as opposed to some of the other trainers. That's
it's that experience. I was talking about that experience. You know, you can get with this like this newbie, you know, South American, you know, trainer but if he tries to reinvent the wheel with you, he's got to understand what you're capable of and what heavyweights can do and what heavyweights is about. So yeah, Ronnie Shields having the heavyweight experience is a great shout. But it's not a big long list, is it really?
No.
And people, you know, not everyone's going to want to jump at this opportunity. You know, not just for the money, because it's you know, they're picking up the pieces of a a big loss where the pressure's on him straight away to get back in there with the same guy and do better. Pressure's on himself, He's dealt with pressure really well throughout his career, but he's had a lot. He's had to contend with a lot, and it's only he will know, or maybe he doesn't even know how much he's got left in the tank, to go again, to come again. But I'm a secret Usyk fan anyway, so I'm happy for him. I think years ago I was on Spencer Oliver's podcast, and I said I think he might be the best heavyweight. But this was when he just won unified the cruiserweights and was talking about moving up to heavyweight. I don't know if he'd be big enough to contend with Fury, but if he can, he might be the man.
He might well be the man. That's an interesting fight. Before we move on from Joshua Usyk, you mentioned about going into that rematch, and it's a tall task. I think you make a really good point about Usyk being better in the rematch, because I feel like a lot of people have kind of lost sight of what Joshua needs to do to be better in the rematch without realising this guy who's had 350 amateur fights is also going to probably take a few things from that. Do you think going into that rematch is... Obviously, look, it's going to be a big money fight. It's still going to be a big fight. Is that advisable, going straight into a rematch like that, considering how it wasn't Ruiz one in the sense of being bounced over the ring 4 or 5 times, but it was a pretty comprehensive loss, a pretty comprehensive boxing lesson. Would a new trainer really ideally want to come in and say, look, maybe we don't take that? Or is it just the position he's in now? And
yeah, it's now or never. Like, if he doesn't take that rematch clause, he might have to wait 18 months to get another shot. Of course, he's got the name to carry him and jump the queue as such, but he can't do that. Like, he still wants to be the man. He still wants to fight in stadiums and get paid. Like, and there will be a tougher sell. Just, this is Joshua's warm-up fight. We're going to do it at Tottenham and it don't sell. Or we'll do it at the O2. It's like a third of the purse. It's not quite the same. And who does he fight? Like, who does he come back and fight? This is his rematch clause. Eddie. So I heard Eddie Hearn saying that Usyk's really excited about it. Of course he is. He's getting paid. Like, this is all signed in. But this is part of the problem. Maybe part of the problem is there's a safety net for most champions. The A side of the champions, you lose, you get your rematch. You're still the A side. You're still going to get paid. Like, the rumours were that Joshua got paid more in the rematch against Ruiz than he did in the first fight. How's that an incentive to win? It's bizarre, isn't it? It's definitely not an incentive as a fan to watch and just see someone who just needs to win to keep the show rolling. He's got a rematch clause, so he says, I'm not gonna go and cry and be sad about losing my belts, because you're fighting for your belts at any moment now, whenever you decide. Like, when I lost my world title fight, I wanted to sob for weeks, because I knew if I get another shot, it's going to take an awful lot of hard work to get there. So that safety net is nice. Safety blanket does the job, but also it can soften you. I don't know. He might go out there and shock us, and it's heavyweights. Do you know what I mean? It only takes one shot to change. If he comes out a bit bullish and he thinks this is a 4-round fight, starts winging away to the body, starts trying to hit him in the chest. Usyk, a bit flustered in the first few rounds, gets tagged with a couple, and then Joshua's a fantastic finisher, jumps on him, finishes him, and it was like, oh, right, well, yeah, back, business as normal, But I don't see it. The fight will definitely happen, but it's just I don't know, something about it's a real stretch, Did Joshua really need it anymore? Does he really need it anymore? He's done his bit. Unified heavyweight champion. He's earned tremendous money, massive accolades. Still got a part to play in boxing. He's still got his management company. He might change his mind. He might go, lost the hunger, lost the desire. It's not quite for me anymore. He might not fight. Who knows?
Okay, well, before we wrap up, because this has really flown by, as it always does when you come on a Boxing Social podcast, fight that's been rumoured, or we look like we're kind of edging towards in the heavyweight division, is Tyson Fury versus Dillian White. What do you make of that fight, if it gets made next?
Yeah, real good fight. An opportunity for White finally to fight for a world title. I think it's now or never for him to a certain degree, you know, like kicking off about, you know, him having to postpone or cancel the Otto Wallin fight. I couldn't care less. Do you know what I mean? Genuinely. What do fans want to see? Do you know what I mean? Do they want to see White fight for a world title or fight Otto Wallin? Because, there was a fight scheduled. Like, that's chip paper. Be great for Fury to come to the UK and be involved in a huge fight and have a bit of a homecoming now that he only really fights in the States. And it's a fight we can really sink our teeth into. And as much as Fury is the heavy favourite, no doubt if that fight does get made and looms closer and closer to fight week, it'll become more and more of a 50-50 matchup, as it always tends to happen. But I think it's a real tough fight, a massive step up in class for White. I know he's felt like he's had a real tough, dogged road, you know, fighting all these guys that he's fought, but lots of them had already been sort of softened up and beaten by a Fury or by Joshua, and so as long as his injury isn't too bad, hopefully it's not, and he can rehab it properly. I think it's some sort of shoulder issue. And Eddie posts your medical records online now, or someone did, so you know you don't have to worry about whether they're faking it or not. Like, confidential, it doesn't exist anymore. Here it is, look, you know. So we know exactly what was wrong with him and where we should hit him next in our next fight.
It's kind of the new thing, isn't it? Now it's like
you posted that. You showed me that picture of your lung earlier. That looked really good.
There's like a little popped balloon on the floor. That's what it felt like anyway. But anyway, it's like the new thing now, isn't it? Like, so and so's injured. Like, yeah, shows your medical records then.
Yeah.
Just strange things. That's what it should have said to you after the Eubank fight. Did the series ask for that?
They did.
I can imagine they did. Yeah.
I had to fly to Berlin or somewhere to see some doctor, tell me whether I was fit to fight or not. I can't remember what I was arguing for at the time, whether I was fit or not.
I think you wanted your 8 weeks.
I think I was arguing that I would be fit.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Don't think so, mate."
Yeah,
don't tell me what I can and can't do.
I will be fit. Have you seen the purse for this final?
I can't pull out now. It's now or never. I'm doing this. I'm sick of being a whore.
And yet here you are.
And here I am.
Okay, right. Final thing. Let's just end where we started-ish, not on the weight making, which was interesting, but anyway. Canelo-Plant. Doubling down. Caleb-Plant. Unanimous decision, split decision. Caleb-Plant KO4.
No.
Where are we going? Where's the George Groves bet of the weekend for Canelo-Plant?
Let's go controversial Canelo points win.
Okay. Well, no, because actually you're kind of hedging your bets there a little bit, because then you go, well, you know, I knew that.
Well, if he stops him in 2 rounds, then what's hedged about that? What I'm saying is,
Plant will win.
Plant won't get a points win.
So you think Canelo wins it by controversial decision, and then you can come on the podcast and say, well, you know, I told you that Plant would win, but he didn't get the decision.
I can't see Plant stopping him.
No, nor can I.
Can you see Plant getting a points win?
No. I think Canelo will stop him personally.
Yeah.
The second half of the fight, I think he'll stop him. I think Plant slow down.
Yeah.
The Truax fight started this year, I think, kind of was a bit telling. He was very good for 4 rounds, and after that, he kind of.
The occasion might get to him, or he might be fucking ready to go. Either or.
But you're going for Canelo on points.
Yeah, let's go for Canelo points. I think, because worst comes to worst, Plant will probably see himself as, rather than trying to go out on his shield, he might see himself as losing on points. You live to fight another day. Maybe. Who knows? Let's see.
We're only a few days away, so we get to find out. Beauty of boxing. George Groves, always a pleasure having you down on the Boxing Social podcast. Hope you liked the new casting couch vibe.
No.
No, I didn't think you did. We're going to turn the camera off now and start the real filming.
I'm leaving now.
But yeah, thanks very much, as always, for popping down, George. Really appreciate your time. And thanks to everybody else for watching us on episode 28, I think, of the Boxing Social podcast. I've been Rob Tebbutt. He's been St. George Groves. Look out for George Groves and Carl Froch coming to a town or city near you. And we'll catch you soon.